As a newcomer to Tekken, I had to solve this one mystery. The mystery of instant running moves. Because, I wanted to harness the power of that Dragon of Running 2 spam. As a newcomer to Tekken who can now consistently do instant running 2 or any other instant running move on demand, I can tell you that almost every single tutorial out there is complete garbage and doesn't teach the correct technique. So, as you could have guessed, today I will fix that. I will explain the logic behind instant running moves, share my practice routine, and since Dragunov has the most famous and useful running move in Tekken 7, I will give you some tips for Dragunov specifically. First, let's start with a bunch of anecdotes. I've seen respected members of community give completely misleading tips on the subject, saying things like hold the last forward and I've seen plenty of less experienced veterans suggest some complete nonsense like doing jab into buffered running 2. None of that is good and none of it makes sense. Instant running 2 is instant running 2. You either can do it or not. So how do you do it? Well, there are two ways to go about it, and both are fine as long as you can do it correctly. The input is triple forward. You can't get away from that. But some people prefer to do forward neutral, forward forward. Others prefer to do forward forward neutral forward. This is pretty easy, however. The trick is to press the last forward at the same time as you press 2. Think of it as of a just frame, except it really isn't. The window is much bigger and actually depends on the distance between you and your opponent. For now, pick the input technique that you can consistently replicate, be it forward forward neutral forward or forward neutral forward forward, and make sure that your last forward is timed correctly right when you press the 2. If you do everything just right, you will get an instant running 2. Now, I don't completely understand how it works, but from what I've been told, the way it works is that the engine assumes running state for your character, and the bigger the distance between you and your opponent is, the bigger is the window for the last forward to be input. So, the further away you are from your opponent, the easier it is. How do you practice it? Well, obviously, the best way to practice it is by doing it point blank, range 0. Spawn yourself at the wall in the practice mode, put dummy into the guard mode and just smash it out. However, my actual advice is to use it at range 1 or 2, because obviously, it's not good when you use it at range 5. It's easily steppable, susceptible to whiff, and let's be real, I wouldn't be teaching you how to do the instant version if doing it from the natural sprint range was any good. But why do I advise you to stay away from doing it up close? Well, the thing is, at close ranges like point blank, you would normally want to use faster moves, and despite running 2 being technically around 15 frames, the input takes some time, so I consider it to be relatively slow to be used in that range. It doesn't mean that you can't use it, and you kinda should use it, since you can just dump your opponent into a corner with a couple of running 2s chained into another couple of running 2s. But I think it has its best use from range 1 or 2. Besides, it's kinda reasonable that it would yield you the most counter hits, since at range 2 or so, people tend to use slower keep out moves, so you will have a natural advantage over them. Anyway, I suggest to practice it the way you would likely be using it in a match. To do that, pick an infinite stage. Start from the spawn and just chain instant running 2s. The pushback on successful hit of running 2 creates enough distance for you to do it again and again. That way you're not bothering yourself with the mostly unnecessary autism of doing it point blank, which is kinda hard, but instead you make it easier for you by doing it the way you would very likely be using it in a real match. Now, since we're talking about Dragunov, he has some funny things for when you actually fail to do the instant running 2. If you do everything correctly, but mistime the last input, the running 2 will fail into forward 2. Good news, forward 2 is safe, and despite it being high, it has a very good mid follow-up. So if you fail the running 2, just buffer the 4, because forward 2 4 is a high mid counter hit launcher. This way you can cover your ass if you screw up instant running 2. Oh, by the way, you can mess up with your opponent a big time by pretending to fail the running 2, and then doing the delayed forward 2 4. The 4 in that string has very good delay, it's amazing. Now, if you somehow manage to fail it into forward 2, then, well, I've got some good news for you as well. You can still salvage the situation. Dragunov's forward 2 has a cancelable grab extension, so forward 2 1 plus 2. And if you want to cancel the grab, then just hold back. Again, if you see yourself failing it that way, just buffer 1 plus 2 and you're good. Hope this video helps you. If you have any questions regarding this video or any other tutorial that you would want to see in the future, leave a comment and let me know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.